Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Optimus Fantasy Football Channel. I am Nate Palvo, joined by my co-host, the one and only Evan Sather, and we are here for the Monday Night Waiver Wire Show. We know there's football going on, but we're here to help you set those lineups for next week. These games only matter tonight, Evan. We've got a lot to talk about moving forward. It was a crazy weekend of NFL football. Your Bears looked damn good. My Broncos looked good for one quarter. We've got a lot of other stuff to unpack here. Let's go ahead and get right on to it. Evan, we're going to start with the waiver wire quarterbacks this week. The first one we're going to talk about, we have to talk about him, Joe Flacco of the Cincinnati Bengals. Look, he was a dead asset at the beginning of the year, right? We weren't talking about him much. He was a guy where it was like, okay, well, if you're in a lot of trouble at quarterback, that wave of injuries at the beginning of the season, guys like Trevor Lawrence and Tua underperforming, maybe this is a guy you could grab too. Is he viable in one quarterback leagues, Evan?
I wouldn't go as far as to say viable. Joe Flacco had a phenomenal game against the Steelers defense that is notorious for playing down to their AFC North rival competition. That Steelers defense really isn't that impressive in general. Like, they've got talent. What was amazing about that game, too, is that when you have a defense with TJ Watt on it, they could not get much pressure at all on Joe Flacco. I think that Flacco faced something like 28% of the time he faced pressure in that game, which is absurdly low considering the talent on that Steelers defense. Also, I don't think Flacco is necessarily going to connect on 31 of 47 every single game. The Jets is still really a juicy matchup. They're 0-7. I don't think there's a lot of great leadership on that team. The Bengals, I definitely expect to win that game against the Jets. I don't know what's going to happen with their coaching and the players and whatnot, because it doesn't seem like everybody's rallying around Aaron Glenn's system yet. But nevertheless, if you are in need of a quarterback, if you're willing to take, even if you wanted to stack like Flacco with Jamar Chase or T. Higgins, or even if you just want to play him naked without those guys, I'd say you don't really need to pay up much for Flacco. He's not a QB1. I would not go higher than about $5 in Fab if you even have that much remaining.
So I feel a little bit differently about this, Evan. And the reason being was the last 2 weeks, he's had a top 14 QB performance. Last week, he was QB 14. He had 3 or 4 days to prepare for that game. Came out, played well enough. They didn't win against Green Bay, but he played well against a good Green Bay defense. This past week against Pittsburgh, again, this defense isn't good. They're middle of the road, average, mediocre at best, right, in Pittsburgh. And he got it done against him, which is still saying something. I mean, Jake Browning couldn't have done this. There's no way in hell. And I think what happened here is you handed a veteran quarterback who knows how to operate in this style of offense 2 elite weapons. You gave him Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Now, for real football, I don't think the Bengals are necessarily going to win a bunch of games. I don't think this becomes a playoff team. I don't think they're going to make a run with Joe Flacco. But from a fantasy standpoint, I can see where there could be more weeks than not where Flacco finishes as top 12 quarterback. Kind of looking at the schedule, I mean, next week, the Jets, that's a good matchup. Chicago is not a great matchup. They've got the bye in week 10. Then they've got Pittsburgh, New England, Baltimore, Buffalo, Baltimore, Miami, Arizona. Leading up to the fantasy playoffs, these are matchups where Joe Flacco could very easily be a QB1. I'm not saying
if he keeps the job.
If he keeps the job, which they're not going to give it back to Jake Browning.
I don't think they will either. But if Flacco can keep getting rid of the football as quickly as he did against the Steelers defense, I think it'll be fine. This offensive line is so atrocious, it makes Seattle's look good. Well,
but that's why you need a guy like Flacco. He's a veteran who knows, like, he's got that internal clock. It is built into him. He's been doing this for 20 years. He knows when it's time to get rid of that ball. His brain tells him, his body tells him, his instinct tells him. Yes. He's the kind of guy that can survive behind a suspect line, because he has those guys. And we're even seeing him utilize Andre Yosevach. Drew Sample is getting targets. If Mike Gesicki was healthy, we'd probably see him get a little bit of an uptick in volume. Unfortunately, Mike Gesicki's on IR. And again, I'm mostly with you, Evan, where he's really very viable in 2 QB. If you need a quarterback in 2 QB leagues, you could do much, much worse than grabbing Flacco. He's borderline in 1 QB, but I'm okay grabbing him as a spot start. And I think that if you're really hurt at quarterback and you have one of your, like, let's say you've got Jaden Daniels, right? And I have a situation like this as well. I'm rostering Flacco behind Jaden Daniels because I don't trust his health. And if Jaden Daniels goes down and he misses an extended period of time, I have no problem rolling Joe Flacco out. I don't want to have to do it for the remainder of the season, but I'd rather do that than some of the other guys on this list here. For example, the next one up, Jackson Dart, New York Giants. He is 55% rostered on Sleeper. I don't have a huge issue with him. I just think when he comes up against better defenses, Evan, it's going to become an issue. We saw that in Denver and the way he collapsed in the fourth quarter. I'm concerned that that's going to ding his confidence a little bit, at least over the next couple of weeks. However, he's got that rushing upside, Evan.
He does have the rushing upside, but that's not necessarily going to matter. Now, Nate, maybe after I finish my response here, you can tell me what the hell is wrong with this Denver Bronco defense, because when you have Nick Bonito, I don't understand how you give up that many points to a terrible New York Giant offense. But as I'll mention here, looking at the schedule coming up here for the Giants, they face the Eagles, the Niners, the Bears, the Packers, the Lions, and then the Patriots before their Week 14 bye. These are not going to be super easy matchups, and that Bears rush defense is finally getting better. They were giving the Saints a really, really hard time, and that's saying something for the Bears, considering that they're still trying to get it together with Dennis Allen. But this is not looking that promising for Jackson Dart. The Eagles are going to want revenge on taking that embarrassing L to the Giants. So Jackson Dart, you can make a case to also stream if you can't get Joe Flacco, but I would not count on him to be throwing 3 touchdowns consistently. But like you also just mentioned, he does get it done with his legs, and he's probably going to have to take it to the house more often than he wants or the coaching staff wants, because they're running back. Cam Scadaboo can't do everything. They're going to have to mix it up every now and then in the red zone, or even if Jackson Dart somehow breaks away out of the red zone, that would be amazing for value. Jackson Dart, I am not going higher also than about $5 fab if you have to pick up a spot starter.
Yeah, I'm with you here. I'm definitely not going above 5, and that's all Dart really is, right? He's going to be a spot start throughout the season. Though in 6-point per passing touchdown leagues, he hasn't had less than 20 fantasy points so far this season, just because he's scoring. He's scoring a ton. Is that going to keep up in this tougher schedule? I don't necessarily think it will. Now, Aaron Rodgers is the next one on this list. We already kind of mentioned his name. 41% rostered on Sleeper, a little bit lower on ESPN, Evan. He's having a little bit of, I wouldn't say renaissance. We kind of expected Aaron Rodgers to be decent, but he's been slightly more than decent, especially the last 2 weeks. 21.5 points against Cleveland, and then he logged 32 in that shootout with Cincinnati. Looking at the schedule, he's got Green Bay next week, and then Indy, the Chargers, Cincinnati, Chicago, Buffalo, Baltimore. They've already had their bye. It's not a super tough schedule, Evan, but we're going to have to trust that Aaron Rodgers can keep this going. DK Metcalf is going to have to stay healthy. That's going to be a big one. And the way that they're spreading the ball out to these tight ends is going to have to continue. Is this something you see continuing? And at what point are you willing to roster Aaron Rodgers? Streamer in 1 QB? Is he a legitimate start in 2 QB in Superflex? Where are you at on him?
You basically said what I was going to say is my summary, is that Aaron Rodgers is also a 1 QB league streamer, and he's also a fine starter if you need a second quarterback to put in there. Rodgers is not going to be your QB2 necessarily in 2 QB leagues or Superflex, but he's at least a guy you can stick in there if one of your other 2 quarterbacks has a bye. He's sitting at QB 14 right now, and that supercharged Bengals defense, Bengals game rather, against that terrible Bengals defense, definitely pumped him up. Depending on your league settings, I have him at 26.56 fantasy points. No thanks to those 2 interceptions he threw against I think they were both in the first quarter against that terrible Bengal defense too, which is pretty bad considering that Rodgers is not anywhere near where he used to be on his farewell tour in what's probably the final chapter of his career. Like you were also just saying too, Packers, Colts, Chargers, Bengals again, Bears, and then it just keeps going in the double-digit weeks. He doesn't have the easiest matchups coming up consistently. He's not going to put up QB1 numbers anymore. He's a QB2 from this point on for the rest of the season, and I think that's all you really need to say about Aaron Rodgers. He's a QB2 and he's fine in an emergency start, but he should not be atop your waiver priority order unless he is absolutely the best option at QB.
Yeah, and definitely, I mean, we're getting into the part of the season where you might have a pretty good idea if you're going to make the playoffs or not, right? So you can kind of start looking at some of these streaming players, like when I pick this guy up, if I put him on my bench, is he going to be reliable in the fantasy playoffs? And I can tell you right now, looking at these matchups for Aaron Rodgers, week 15, first week of the fantasy playoffs against Miami is great. But then they've got at Detroit and at Cleveland to round out the fantasy playoffs. That's going to be a tough run if you've got a team in the playoffs and you want to roll out Aaron Rodgers. So just be mindful of that one. The last one we're going to talk about here, we can keep this one pretty brief. Spencer Rattler, 13% rostered on Sleeper, excuse me. Again, we've talked about him a handful of times on this show the last probably 3 or 4 weeks. Serviceable back-end QB2 that you have to understand is going to have weeks where he's going to be much worse than a QB2. You shouldn't be spending a lot of fab on him, but if you're desperate, this is better than rostering Cam Ward or Tyrod Taylor.
Yes, and that's not really saying much considering how awful he was against my Bears on Sunday. 20 for 32 for 2 touchdowns, which they both went to Chris Olave. The Bears defense had a bit of a lapse. The passing secondary depth for the Bears is okay. Like, it's not phenomenal. Deshaun Wright is trying to come through in place of Jalen Johnson, but I mean, they're not phenomenal cornerbacks. We need Tyreek Stevenson and we need Kyler Gordon out there to keep defending these wide receivers. But I think those 2 touchdown passes remind people that Chris Olave is a really good wide receiver option. He had elite potential if the Saints weren't just so bad ever since Drew Brees retired. So coming back to Spencer Rattler, he happened to win this quarterback job by default. Derek Carr had that career-ending shoulder injury. I don't think the Saints were expecting Rattler to be their temporary option until they can draft a better quarterback. And even at this point, Rattler could very well lose his job to Tyler Shugg. And even then, a 26-year-old rookie. Nah, I think this is still ugly for the Saints offense. I think whoever's still starting at quarterback will still hit Chris Olave, but Spencer Rattler should absolutely be last on the list, and you should be prepared to drop him as soon as he loses the starting job to Tyler Shugg. I wouldn't spend any fab on Rattler if I were you guys. I would say just, if you can get him for free, by all means take him if he's just legit the best option on the wire.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he'll be free. Who knows what could happen? I mean, these guys, no matter what, they're an NFL quarterback. He could pop. You really think Tyler Shuck's going to take over? You really think he's going to end up with the starting job at some point? I want him to.
It'll probably be, I'm guessing it'll be sometime in December when the matchups get a bit tougher and the Saints want to see who else they have in him. Because it's not like the Saints are going to be making the playoffs anyway. They're going to have the Week 11 bye, and then they've got some important division rival games against the Falcons, the Buccaneers, and then the Panthers in 12, 14, and 15 respectively. And then they face the Jets, the Titans, and then the Falcons, who, I mean, the Falcons are probably the best defense out of this bunch, but even then the Saints are probably just going to roll out their B team to see who else they have at this point. So saying Tyler Shugg is going to take over is like it's an overstatement. He's not taking over anything. Let's be real.
He was one of my favorite quarterbacks outside of the top. Well, let's be honest. He was actually one of my favorite quarterbacks in Mobile at the Senior Bowl. He looked a ton better than, I can't even remember his name, the kid out of Notre Dame, Riley Leonard. Looked a ton better than Riley Leonard. I was very impressed with Shuck. Would love to see him get a starting job, but I don't.
Finding a startable quarterback coming out of Notre Dame is about as rare as I can't think of an analogy off the top of my head, but I mean, I guess it's rare as getting a good running back out of there too, outside from guys like Jerome Bettis.
Yeah, or getting a good running back out of UNC for the most part. All right, guys, we're going to move on here, but before I want to get to this one comment here in the chat, Alf Sucks at Mock Drafts wants to know he's got a PPR 14-man team is Tila, Henry, Scadabo, AJ Brown, Chris Olave, Jake Ferguson, Michael Pittman with Rashee Rice, Jerry Jeudy, and Bam Knight on the bench. Well, first of all, get Rashee Rice off your damn bench, man. He wants to know, should I trade AJ Brown for Daniel Jones and Kenneth Walker? Yeah, I think you should. I don't trust that A.J. Brown is going to have any sort of steady value this season in the Eagles offense. I would move him, get Daniel Jones, much better quarterback option than T-Law. And I don't hate adding Kenneth Walker to that running back room, especially because we don't know about Derrick Henry, and Bam Knight's your backup. I think this is a good move all around. What do you think, Evan?
Being that it's a 14-team league, I mean, I don't hate this trade, but I also don't like it. I don't think A.J. Brown is necessarily worth trading because the Eagles are finally starting to figure out their passing game. A.J. Brown finally had himself a 4-for-6 game for 121 yards. If he didn't fall in the end zone, that would still be a double-digit performance. Maybe not necessarily the wide receiver one performance you were hoping for on the scoreboard, but the Eagles are still trying to feed their wide receivers. They faced that awful Minnesota secondary, which helped them out a lot, and Barkley struggled against their tough run defense. So A.J. Brown is not somebody I would give up too easily. I get the need to trade for a better quarterback, being that your quarterback is Trevor Lawrence, and you're not really going to be winning a lot of games with him on your starting lineup. But I would say don't necessarily settle for that. See what other options you have before you pull that trigger, because I mean, the fact that you still have Rashee Rice on the bench and you still have Judy in case you really need to start him, I don't think I'd give up A.J. Brown so easily. But I get it. You know, you got Derrick Henry, you got Scadaboo. I don't think Scadaboo's going to be great all season long. Are these benches really that short, by the way? For only 3 guys? That seems a bit small.
My Kings Classics were only 5 deep on the bench. It's hard. It's not fun, but it is what it is in smaller leagues. All right.
Sorry for that
ahead.
wishy-washy answer there, Alf. I would say just tread carefully. I mean, if you do it, I wish you all the best, but I'm hesitant to trade A.J. Brown because I think he'll have better games.
Yeah, see, he might, but I would replace. I want to get rid of Trevor Lawrence, and I think it's worth it. But hey, the difference of opinion is what makes this all fun. Now let's hop over to the running backs for this week's Week 8 waiver wire. We're going to start with your boy over in Chicago, Kyle Monangai, 11% rostered on Sleeper. 13 carries for 81 yards last week against New Orleans. 1 touchdown on the ground. He added another 3 targets, 2 catches for 13 yards. By far the most volume he's seen all season, and he did it on a 45% snap share, which was his highest of the season, Evan. 6.23 yards per carry behind DeAndre Swift. Do we believe that Kyle Monangai has earned a role moving forward that makes him worth rostering in fantasy?
Well, so he already had a role. It's just the reason he took so much snaps and rushing work is because the Bears were struggling to get the passing game going. It was a really weird first half where Caleb kept getting his passes batted down and incompletions were happening all over the place. The Soldier Field was really wet and people were having a hard time holding out of the football. Drew Dahlman was having a difficult time getting the ball out of his hands into Caleb's hands, our center. It was really weird to watch. Like, fundamentals were not going well. So the Bears just kept running the football in the first half because it was working and the Saints couldn't stop it. And then by the second half, they could give Kyle more work just because we were up by 2 scores. So he saw 45% of the snaps. He saw 41 in week 2 against the Lions. So it's not like he hasn't seen this type of work before. He already had a role. He replaced Roschon Johnson for sure. The Bears still love DeAndre Swift. There is no plans to trade him at this point. There will be some games where if the running game goes really well, they're going to give more work to Monangai, but it's still Swift's backfield. Kyle Monangai, you could definitely make a case to roster. He's not a handcuff. He's getting enough work to where you could justify rostering him on the bench, especially in deeper leagues. If you're badly in need of a running back, you could make a case for like a desperate flex. But Kyle Monangai, I would not be paying more than about $2 or $3 fab dollars because he's just not going to see enough work like this. He happened to fall in the end zone, so people are going to go nuts for it. But it's not going to be like this every single game. He's going to be facing a Baltimore defense that I thought was good, but I'm not so sure anymore. I don't think they can stop anything.
They can't stop anything. Well, this is what I wanted to say here, and then we'll move on to our next running back here. Baltimore, Cincinnati, the New York Giants, Minnesota, Pittsburgh, Philly, up through week 13. These are good matchups for the Bears. Not that Monangai is going to have another near 20 PPR points, but I could see him being a guy that you can expect to get double digits at least through week 13 on this team. Again, I think you're right. $2 to $3 in your fab, get Monanga on your bench, see what he does over the next couple of weeks, see if he becomes flex worthy. Now, the next one we're going to talk about, Evan, is Brashard Smith of the Kansas City Chiefs. 9% rostered on Sleeper. Had a little bit of a coming out party yesterday. Saw his season high 14 carries, took that for 39 yards. But the more impressive part is the continuation of his usage in the passing game. Caught all 5 of his targets for 42 yards against Las Vegas. And look, we know this was a blowout. We get it. This game was over before it started. It was against Las Vegas. People are maybe getting a little bit too excited about what they saw out of Kansas City in this matchup just because Vegas is so bad. But it gave us a chance to see what Brashard Smith can do. And he's seen north of 3 targets the last 5 weeks now. It looks like he's starting to get some sort of role in an offense that hasn't been able to run the ball. Now, he hadn't had more than 4 carries in a game before this week 7 matchup. I don't expect this to continue at this volume for him, but I do think he's worth a bench ad. $1 to $2, add him to your bench, see what happens, because this KC run game is bad. And if he can start to show flashes that he can actually get something done, expect him to start getting significant work behind Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, you pretty much said every single point I wanted to hit on Brashard Smith, too. He was terrible in efficiency against the Raiders. 14 for 39 on the ground. That's not even 3 yards per carry. That's terrible. That Raiders run defense is not even that good either. I mean, just because you have Max Crosby doesn't mean you're great at stopping the run. But it sure helps, because especially against an AFC West division rival. And he caught 5 of 5 for 42, which is not too shabby for a rookie. And yeah, Brashard Smith is a guy they absolutely wanted to get going, but just like what Andy Reid likes to do with his running backs, this is a full-blown running back by committee. You're not going to get RB1 volume out of Brashard Smith rest of season. He's going to be sharing with Isaiah Pacheco. Kareem Hunt is finally starting to lose snaps. I mean, I think he's also partially hurt as well, just because he's playing, but Kareem Hunt is also finally starting to lose some momentum. He's not like he used to be 8 years ago when he first started on the Chiefs before the terrible domestic incident that I'm not going to cover again because it's all in the past. But in any case, Kareem Hunt is finally off the fantasy radar, and Brashard Smith, I wouldn't go above $2 in fab to get him. You can absolutely, if he's not already taken, you can absolutely take a shot on him, put him on your bench and see if he has better games ahead or if he actually takes over the lion's share of the snaps here, because Pacheco took 15 carries, but is he going to keep that volume forever? Don't know. It's still a committee.
Yeah, it will continue to be a committee. What I'm looking for is him to take more of the passing work. I think that's where the value in Brashard Smith will come down the line. All right, our next guy we were going to talk about here, Tyler Algier over in Atlanta. He is 44% rostered on Sleeper, Evan. Of course, we all know he's behind Bijan Robinson. This week against San Francisco wasn't his best performance. He had 4 carries for 16 yards. That was the extent of his work. He saw only a 23% snap share, which was his second lowest of the season. However, if we know anything about this offense, we know about what Zach Robinson wants to do with it. Tyler Algier is going to be involved. It's boom bust, right? I mean, we have weeks where he looks good. He's basically had a touchdown every other week. But coming up on the schedule, we've got Miami, New England, Indy, Carolina, New Orleans, the New York Jets, Seattle, Tampa Bay as we head into the fantasy playoffs. I feel like in these matchups, Tyler Algier is a guy who it's worth the bet that he'll fall into the end zone if you need a back end flex play or if you're looking for a handcuff to Bijan as you're approaching the fantasy playoffs because you need that security. I think Tyler Algier is worth rostering. However, again, this is a $2 to $3 fab bid at most to get Algier. You're not breaking the bank for him because he's not that consistent.
Yeah, Algier should not be rostered in shallow leagues unless you're absolutely desperate, because right now, despite the fact that he has gotten some good work depending on game script against the Minnesota Vikings, the Washington Commanders, and even the Buffalo Bills, he scored a touchdown in all those games, which added more to his value. And they were playing from behind against the 49ers on this past Sunday night, which is also why he didn't get much work, because they needed Bijan more in the passing game, and they didn't feel secure running the football because the 49ers defense is really, really tough against the run. And even then, it still wasn't enough to stop Bijan in the passing game. But if you take a look at Bijan's efficiency on the ground, 14 for 40. That's not even 3 yards per carry. That's how tough that Niners defense is. So game script dictated the usage for Algier. He's a handcuff. I would not suggest picking up Algier if you're in a shallow league. You probably have better running back options on your bench. If you don't, $1 maybe, if that. You don't really need to spend much on Algier. He's not going to be somebody you can start safely. But if something happens to Bijan, you're going to be darn happy that you've got him. But in the meantime, don't even look at Algier as anything more than like a desperate, low priority waiver option if you really don't have any other running backs to pick up.
Yep. We're going to go ahead and move on to the next guy because I feel the same about him. And the final one we're going to talk about as well. Isaiah Davis of the New York Jets. He is 11% rostered on Sleeper. Look, I know Braylon Allen is out. We want to think there's going to be a second back and this offense is going to take some volume. I don't think that Isaiah Davis is going to be it. He had 2 carries yesterday against Carolina for 10 yards, 4 targets, 2 catches. He's not a guy who's getting red zone work. He's not someone who's going to score. He's not someone who's, as long as Breece Hall is healthy, he's not going to, even remotely sort of kind of healthy, he's not going to see any significant volume. And at the point where Breece Hall gets hurt, I still don't think Isaiah Davis is going to see significant volume. So if you need someone and you think you can get him for free and you want to stash him, you need the handcuff for Bijan or for Breece Hall, I'm fine with it. Otherwise, I'd be staying away from Isaiah Davis.
No, I would not go after Isaiah Davis either. The bulk of his volume in fantasy production, the 5.2 points he picked up in PPR leagues against the Panthers, came from the passing game. He caught 2 passes for 22 yards. I don't remember what point of the game that was, if that was from Justin Fields or if that was from Tyrod Taylor. Either way, I don't really care because I really don't want any other pieces of this Jets offense at this point. We are finally back to a stage where we have to tell people in fantasy football, no New York Jets until further notice. Because unfortunately, this 0-7 trash organization cannot get anything going on offense anymore. This Panthers team is not even that good of a team. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're better than last year, but in general, they're still not that good of a football team, and they couldn't even beat the Panthers. So, being that they're struggling this much on both offense and defense, I'm not even looking at Isaiah Davis at this point. Leave him on the waivers.
I mean, without Garrett Wilson, this offense is just, it's lost. So, last one we're going to talk about, former New York Jet, Bam Knight, now in Arizona, 35% rostered on Sleeper. I know he's the lead back here, Evan. We saw it against Green Bay this weekend, 14 carries for 57 yards. He added 3 catches for 7, 45% snap share, 9 PPR fantasy points, nothing exciting. I have no interest in this backfield, and I don't think I even have an interest in this backfield when Kyler Murray gets back and when Trey Benson gets back. This is not a good offense. It's not a good offense with their quarterbacks. It's not going to be good. It says something that you're watching people watch this team play, and they're saying Jacoby Brissett should be starting over Kyler Murray, and they're not wrong. Jacoby Brissett's running this offense far more efficiently. You and I have both been saying this. Mm-hmm. So I have very little interest in rostering anyone in this offense, especially a running back. I mean, yeah, he had 4 yards per carry, got the 57 yards, but he didn't score. And you really need Bam Knight to score for him to be viable as anything other than a back-end emergency flex. If he's not already on your roster and you feel like you need to add a running back, fine, but don't spend $1 on him. If you can't get him for free, he's not worth it.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. Bam Knight is not even seeing that many snaps in this offense anyway. It looks like the Cardinals are struggling to run the football so much, they've gone out with a full-blown committee. They even elevated Dearness Johnson to the active roster, which I didn't even know until now. He took 18% of the snaps, and he saw 1 carry that went nowhere. So they're desperate to run the football at this point. They barely got 9 touches to Michael Carter, for crying out loud, and Michael Carter's looking terrible himself. I really hope you folks didn't spend much money in Fab on any Cardinals running back at this point, because it is ugly. Even when they get Trey Benson probably after the Week 8 bye, I don't even want to start Trey Benson. That's how bad this backfield is. And like you were just saying, if Kyler Murray takes back the starting quarterback job, oh boy, this offense is not going to be much better. I mean, I hate to say it, but Jacoby Brissett is better in this offense than Kyler Murray, which says a lot of negative things about Kyler considering how much money he's getting freaking paid. I hate seeing quarterbacks like him fail because he just... I won't even get into my rant about his terrible work ethic, but in any case, don't even bother with Bam Knight at this point. If he's still somehow available, see how low you can go in Fab. Go $2-3 Fab dollars at most. Like you were just saying, I don't want anything to do with these Cardinals running backs. It sucks.
Yeah, it's all bad. All bad. All right, Evan. Well, that does it for running backs. Let's move on to a little bit more fun position, the wide receivers. And when I say more fun, I just mean a different position. This one is just about as ugly. There's a couple decent plays this week. But we'll get to those in a minute. We're going to start with the crap ones because why not? Chris Moore is the first one we're going to go with. Washington Commanders. He is 13% rostered on Sleeper right now. Without Terry McLaurin, Deebo Samuel's banged up. You've got Zach Ertz. Jaden Daniels is hurt. He's questionable for next week, so we're going to have Marcus Mariota. It seems in these situations with most teams, we see these bit roll guys start to get a little bit more work because they're more familiar with the second team. I think that's what's happening with Chris Moore. He had the 5 targets yesterday. Most of them were with Mariota. I don't have much interest in rostering him. There are other players on this offense, and we'll talk about one of them here in a little bit that I have a little bit more interest in because he's seeing more consistent volume, which could continue moving down or moving forward. Chris Moore just isn't someone I'm interested in at all.
No, I'm not interested in Chris Moore either because the Commanders were playing from behind against the Cowboys and they were just desperate to get the ball in anybody's hands who could catch because they can't get old man Zach Ertz to do everything, and he was only 3 for 7 on Sunday against the Cowboys. Fortunately, he fell in the end zone if he started Ertz, but Chris Moore is, he saw some deeper work. He's at least a good veteran that can kind of catch. It was an ugly game for the Commanders with just all their key offensive pieces getting hurt and nobody else to step up. Chris Moore is absolutely not somebody that you need to be spending any fab on. If you get him for free, fine. Just don't ruin your waiver priority order if you can help it.
Yep, no, I completely agree. Man, that game just did not turn out how we thought it was going to turn out. That was supposed to be one of the fun ones. 44-22 final in that one if you didn't watch it. Don't go rewatch it. This Commanders offense, they're too banged up. It's really hard to be excited about any of these pieces, especially, we drafted them pretty high. So let's move on to the next unexciting wide receiver, Chimere Dike over in Tennessee. Jen grabbed him and started him right before kickoff. She didn't really have anyone else to pop in. He ends up going 4 for 4 for 70 and a touchdown. About the same volume he's been seeing all season. It hasn't been anything crazy. That was his first touchdown. Do you think moving forward, Chimere Dike is someone that you should be rostering? Is he like a back-end flex play? I mostly think he's an emergency start type of guy that you're going to grab on waivers right before a game. I wouldn't be wasting a spot on my roster for him.
I would not be rushing to go get Chimere Dike as well. If your league counts return points, you're especially happy with DK's performance because he took 3 kick returns for 84 yards, which is a pretty solid outing if you count those. But otherwise, if you don't, 4 for 4 for 70 and a touchdown is best case scenario for a rookie wide receiver in a completely trash offense like the Titans have. They really don't have anybody that's worth a damn in this offense who's also healthy. Elikayo Manor just needs more time to develop if the Titans even develop him at all. And then who the heck else do they have? They just released Tyler Lockett today. He's done. Yeah. He barely saw any targets in this offense. 2 for 2 for 18. The guy's pretty much cooked at this stage in his career. The Seahawks got rid of him just in the nick of time as they replaced him with Jackson Smith and Jigba. Now, Chigo Okonkwo, it doesn't even see enough volume in this offense either, but I'm expecting that to change, which is bad for DK. So, don't go paying up for Chimere Dike in any league. It's not going to be a repeat performance. He's, without Calvin Ridley, that's why he was seeing an increase in snaps, and even then, unless you count return points, don't bother with DK. Donkey Kong. Okay, not that type of DK, sorry, but,
Yep. Okay. Well, I think we're in agreement here. I mean, I love the name. Very cool name. Just not rosterable in fantasy right now.
Great name, by the way.
Yeah, great name. Let's move on to Jalen Lane, another Washington Commander. He's 4% rostered on Sleeper. Look, this is the guy I'm more interested in. 6 targets last week, 3 catches for 60 yards. But what's more interesting about him is looking at his snap share throughout the season. 30, 52, 24, 44, 34, 42, then 69 this week. And
nice.
I think with Terry McLaurin out and with with Deebo Samuel injured, dinged up, I realistically think that we could see a lot more Jalen Lane. Now, to be clear, his ceiling is like back-end wide receiver 3, maybe a flex play at most. You're going to hope that you can get double-digit points out of him. His ceiling's probably 12 to 15 points on a good week. But of the guys who are available right now, and of the guys that we've talked about so far, he's the one I would be most interested in, to the tune of 1 to 2% of my fab, maybe $1 to $2 on the wire for him.
Yeah, Jalen Lane actually is the guy that I happen to forget about because he's a later round wide receiver who did the most out of what everybody else in that offense could do against that Cowboys team that just figured out how to beat them. I mean, in NFC East rival, it's not that surprising. I'll talk a little bit more about the Cowboys defense later, not to get too distracted. But yeah, if you really, really need a wide receiver out of this bunch, I would say Jalen Lane out of the Commanders is the guy to add if both Debo and Terry can't go. Even out of everybody else that we're about to talk about, I'm putting him at the top of my waiver priority order out of all the wide receivers we're going to cover this week. Again, if your league also counts return points, he is the primary punt returner for the Commanders. That is worth a crap. Even if he doesn't really get anywhere, if he has to call fair catch, I mean, I don't play in leagues with return yards or return points, so I don't know what that means for you, but that's also something to keep in mind as you figure things out with your leftover fab. But aside from that, I wouldn't go higher than about $3-4 fab dollars tops.
Yeah, I'm with you. Don't go crazy on it. The next one we're going to talk about here, Darnell Mooney over in Atlanta, Evan. This is another one I wouldn't go crazy for. The name recognition is there, right? We all know Darnell Mooney. Had that big week 3 where he had 11 targets. He only managed 4 catches. I'm not that excited about Darnell Mooney. I really think I would add Jalen Lane over Darnell Mooney. He had 5 targets last week, 3 for 68. But in this offense, it's not consistent enough to care about. This is a very much, it's very condensed offense. You've got Kyle Pitts, Drake London, Bijan Robinson. That is the majority of what they're using in this offense. It makes guys like Brady McLeod and Darnell Mooney really hard to roster. I'm leaving him on the wire. If I'm super desperate, I feel like I need a handcuff to Drake London, which you should never handcuff a wide receiver. But if you decide you want to do it, who am I to tell you what to do all the time? He would be the guy I'd go after. Other than that, though, I really have no interest in Darnell Mooney.
No, I have no interest in Darnell Mooney either, but he's at least rosterable based on the snaps that he gets. He is the wide receiver 2 on this depth chart. But in the Falcons' case, that doesn't really mean much because the Falcons are just not a good offense. Their best pieces, like you already said, London, Pitts, and Bijan, those are the guys they're rolling through. This is an average NFC team that is not really going to do much, even with the pieces they have. I did not like Darnell Mooney as my wide receiver 1 when he played for my Bears. I liked the breakout performances he had on the Falcons in the past couple of years, but even then, that's not enough to change my mind this year. This is not a good Falcons offense. The quarterback they have is also a problem. I don't like Michael Penix all that much. It's like what I was joking about with you on Blue Sky. I think when they had the number 9 pick in the draft last year, their front office was like, hey, go draft that Washington guy. And they ended up picking Penix instead of Rome Odunze, and that they flipped out because they already paid Kirk Cousins. And now they're in a bit of a pickle because Darnell Mooney is not really that strong of a wide receiver 2 either. So coming back around to how much you should spend on him, I wouldn't go higher than about $2 fab dollars tops. He's not going to be somebody that's ever going to leave your bench unless you've got everybody hurt.
Yeah, 100%. All right, we're going to move on to our last wide receiver, Evan. We've got Alec Pierce of the Indianapolis Colts here, 13% rostered on Sleeper. I think I like him a little bit more than you do. I've been a big fan of Alec Pierce. He's one of those like field stretching players, but he can also work underneath. And Daniel Jones seems to have taken a liking to him. When he's been healthy, his lowest output was a 3-target game against Miami. He only had 4 fantasy points in that game. He's had 3 games at double digits, and last week with Josh Downs out, Evan, 10 targets, turned that into 5 for 98. Of course, he had the one really long athletic catch. And I know that factors in. Alec Pierce is a down the field guy. He's going to get those deeper targets, and that's where a lot of his value lies. But if Josh Downs is out, I think that there's a lot more value in Alec Pierce, and he showed it last week getting those 10 targets. Indy is a team that can do both things. They can run the ball well. Obviously, Jonathan Taylor having a career year, maybe one of the greatest seasons we'll see from a running back in NFL history when it's all said and done. Feels to where that's trending. But they throw the ball well. Daniel Jones is a good quarterback. They're spreading the ball out a little bit here. And with Josh Downs out, if this goes on, I like Alec Pierce a lot. He's a guy who I think you can plug in as a back-end wide receiver 2 or a flex. Again, if Josh Downs continues to be out and he continues to gain traction in this offense, if he's starting to get some of those more high-value, shorter targets, Alec Pierce becomes startable, in my opinion. How do you feel about that, Evan?
I need to warn you all about something. So, we have finally reached the time of year in which this is the Alec Pierce trick week. This is where he is going to bamboozle all of you into giving up way too many fab dollars to get him, just because he caught 5 of 10 for double-digit volume. I know he's got a juicy matchup next week against a really bad Titans defense, but don't be surprised if he goes 4 for 5 for 60-some yards and barely crosses double-digit volume again, now that he's finally got a real quarterback, and that Ashton Doolin and Adonai Mitchell turned out to be nothing. That's assuming that Josh Downs is out again. But even then, Alec Pierce is an example of a boom-bust guy that you really don't want to have to flex if you can help it. Don't spend more than about $1 in fab if you can help it, because this is somebody in your league is going to overpay for Pierce, and then they're going to flex him, and then they're going to cry because he's probably going to get barely 4 targets and get anywhere with them, even against a bad Titans defense. So beware of Alec Pierce. He is rosterable, but don't go crazy trying to get him, expecting him to be more than what he's already done.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not saying go out and blow your bank on him. There's only one guy on this sheet that I would recommend that on, and we haven't talked about him yet. But I do think that he's a reasonable risk. He's a guy you can roster. You're going to get points out of him every week. And maybe he starts to boom a little bit, or maybe this was the trick Alec Pierce week. I don't know. If it was, it tricked me. But again, as long as Josh Downs is out, I like Alec Pierce a lot more. All right, we're going to be done with these running backs. I'm sorry, we're going to be done with these wide receivers. We're also done with running backs for sure. All right, well, we're going to move on to the tight ends then. My favorite position to talk about. This is a short list this week, Evan. We've only got 3. We're going to start with Evan Ingram over in Denver. He is 48% rostered on Sleeper right now. He's been getting more involved in this offense. I know part of it was with yesterday's game. He had the 8 targets, 5 catches, 42 yards. A lot of that was late, and they're running that elongated 2-minute drill in the fourth quarter. But that said, we're on now 4 straight games of 6+ targets. He's got a touchdown in that span. We're seeing a little bit higher snap shares, 43, 41, 47, and then 56 against the Giants. Coming up for this Denver offense, they've got Dallas, Houston, Vegas, Kansas City before the bye. If this is a team that's going to win, they're going to need to use Evan Ingram more if they're going to keep winning. I mean, they're 5-2 now, which is just insane to me. I can't believe it. But I do like Evan Ingram, a really thin tight end position. He's not a bad roster. Don't blow the bank on him. $2 to $3 fab max, but I do think that there's value there as a back end tight end 1.
Yeah, there's definitely tight end 1 value with Evan Ingram. He's got a really nice matchup against the Cowboys coming up next week in Week 8. I mean, Nate, you know your Broncos better than I do, so I'm sure there's probably more you can explain on why the heck does Sean Payton not like using Evan Ingram, considering the elite receiving potential he has. But even then, I don't know if he still has it at this stage in his career with all the injuries he's had. So, spoiler alert, Evan Ingram is a guy I will be covering on the Waiver Wire Week 8 article that will soon be released on OptimusFantasy.com. Please go here after the show. You'll find all kinds of wonderful recommendations that me and my teammates will be putting out there in written form. And Carly in the comments is mentioning that it is live now. Thank you. Appreciate that. So Ingram is not the most exciting name to be coming off of your waiver wire, but if you are in need of a streamer that you can expect tight end 2 value out of, he's perfectly fine in PPR leagues. So if you miss out on the next guy that we're going to be talking about soon, he's fine. I am a little more generous with my fab on Ingram than you, and maybe you're more right than I am, but I would say don't go higher than about 5 to 7% of your fab to get him, which could mean a few bucks at this point, depending on how much you have left, but yeah, I wouldn't go crazy getting Evan Ingram.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't either. But again, this is a tough position in fantasy. It is every year. And the barrier to be a tight end 1 is like not even double-digit points some weeks. So I don't know. I don't think he's a bad ad, but there are 2 guys on this list I like better. The first one on this list that I do like better is Cade Otton. I loved me some Cade Otton. Cade Otton already has 3 targets tonight. He's got 2 catches for 14 yards, which isn't crazy, but I want to talk about what his value is. Mike Evans is out with a concussion. Chris Godwin is out. Emeka Egbuka is playing, but he's injured. Cade Otton is a guy that Baker Mayfield trusts. And in a pinch situation, we saw it last year, he's going to start hyper-targeting Cade Otton. I'm really surprised he's only got 3 targets tonight. Incredibly surprised, actually. But that's not going to be the norm. This is a guy who's seeing volume in this Bucs offense. The last 3 weeks, 4, 5, and 6 targets. He hasn't been below 3. He hasn't gotten in the end zone, which is definitely different. He'll get there. I'm not worried about that. But we saw him last year go on a run second half of the season. Cade Otton's a guy I want on my roster for that run because we know it's going to come in Tampa Bay. This is a team that's in contention. They're going to need him as injuries pile up. I like him a lot. I'd be willing to spend 3 to 5% of my fab on him this week.
That's about as high as I'd be willing to go on Cade Otton as well. So what's going to be helping Cade Otton as well as the rest of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense is that they're not facing a tough Detroit defense like they are right now. So don't be intimidated by these low fantasy numbers after one half of football that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offensive pieces have put up so far, especially Sterling Shepard losing a fumble, which if you started him tonight or Mike Evans tonight, I'm sorry, folks. It'll get better, I promise. But being that Mike Evans is probably in the concussion protocol, it would not surprise me if he misses next week. I think Egbuka is possibly just going to be the only healthy wide receiver who's got talent out of this. Everybody else, no offense, Tez Johnson, but you're a young guy that needs to develop as well. So this is going to open things up for Cade Otton. And the Saints are not good at defending tight ends either. So Tampa Bay takes on a division rival in the Saints next week. Cade Otton is a guy that you could get probably for free because not a lot of people are going to be targeting him. So if you're in a league where people are going to be turned off by his 2 for 3 for 14 so far, I mean, unless it's halftime right now at the time of recording this. So if he explodes in the second half, that's going to change my answer. But as of right now, if he doesn't do better than right now, I would say just, try to get him for free if you can, because he's going to be a juicy start next week.
You're not getting him in a league I'm in. He was going so late. It was like that 16th, 17th round of these redraft leagues. Like, I don't really have any interest in drafting anybody else. Nobody's really exciting me. I'm going to go all Cade Otton on him, and it hasn't worked yet, but it will, Evan. It will. Now, the last guy we're going to talk about, this is, and I know I bring up, when we start talking about these young guys, I like to talk about what I saw out of them in Mobile at the Senior Bowl. It's a unique opportunity to be up close to these guys, watch them work through drills, watch them work with coaches, and get to actually talk to them, get a better feel for who they are as a person, a player, how they operate within a system. Oronde Gadsden is a phenomenal tight end. He was one of the guys in Mobile that everyone was just absolutely blown the freak away by. He was so good. A lot of days, all 3 days of practice, a lot of us walked away saying Mason Taylor and Oronde Gadsden were the 2 best players on the field today, and it wasn't even close between work ethic and skill. Now we've seen it because Oronde Gadsden went nuts last night. He had 168 yards, Evan, 9 targets, 7 catches. He has a touchdown, 30 PPR fantasy points for the rookie tight end. In an offense that's got Keenan Allen, Quentin Johnson, and Ladd McConkey, this has to keep up. Will Dissly is a non-factor all of a sudden. He just straight up disappeared. You said in our waiver wire article, you said to dump 100% of your fab on him. If you need a tight end or you need someone that you can consistently flex every week, he's not going to have 164 yards every week, Evan. That's not going to happen. But last week he had 8 targets against Miami, 7 catches for 68 yards. The volume's there. The touchdowns will come in this offense. I love him, and I would literally empty my bank if I needed a tight end for him right now.
Yep, so we're going to spoil the part of the waiver wire article that just got posted to optimusfantasy.com. In case you just tuned in, right there, check that out after the show. It is right there on the read section in case you don't see it on the front page for some reason. Oronde Gadsden II is what I like to call him because he's the son of former Dolphins wide receiver Oronde Gadsden, who played wide receiver back in the day. This will be easily the top popular ad for all positions, not even just tight ends. Even if you already have a tight end on your roster, you probably also have flex spots, at least one. You can make a case to be flexing Gadsden alongside your top tight end, even if you have somebody like Sam Laporta or whoever. Whoever you have, you can absolutely start Gadsden next to him. According to Underdog Fantasy, which we also have on our article as well, in week 7, his receiving yards, 164. That's the most by any rookie in 2025. Most by the Chargers tight ends since Antonio Gates was on the team. And the most by a rookie tight end in 40 years. We're talking 1985, people. We're talking as old as me, if you can believe it.
Who was it? Who was the tight end in 85?
That I'm going to need to look up because I don't have that in front of me.
I'm going to guess it was Mark Bavaro, the New York Giants.
I'm not a Giants guy, so I'll need somebody like Carly to confirm that for me. But
yeah, I'm not either. But that would be my guess. However, yeah, look, Gadsden's a smash play. He found his role in this offense. We've seen the kind of decline of Quentin Johnston. Keenan Allen's older. You want to lessen his workload if you can. That's what Gadsden does. He does all of those things for this team. You can back off Quentin Johnston. You've got another weapon in the passing game. And especially right now with Amarian Hampton out, it's really key to have another part of this passing game, the short passing game especially, because you're not running the ball a ton with Hassan Haskins and Kamani Vidal. It's just not happening.
No, it's just not happening. Listen,
Yeah.
even if Hampton, if and when he does return, I don't think things are changing for Gadsden because they clearly want to get this guy involved. They clearly love this guy. I don't know how the heck Gadsden fell so low in the draft. They got him in a 5th round pick. 5th! He should have been a 2nd round pick, quite frankly, at the very least. In this tight end class, it's not the most spectacular of all time, but in a tight end class with Tyler Warren and Colston Loveland, it's amazing. Mason Taylor too. Like Gadsden went so late that I can't believe the Chargers are going to reap the benefits of having him in their offense. But he's here to stay. He's not going to be losing in his volume. Now, don't count on 30 fantasy PPR points every single week from Gadsden, but this is a guy that's going to have high-end tight end 2, if not low-end tight end 1 volume rest of season. This is why you need to empty your fab for him. It's not like Will Dissly or even Tyler Conklin was going to be seeing consistent volume. Those were just holdovers until Gadsden was ready. Yes, and like Lou pointed out here, Terrence Ferguson, Harold Fannin, deep drafts drive quality prospects down, and that's what happened to Gadsden. Even you just said it earlier, Nate. He was getting all the ooh-ahs at the Senior Bowl. Like everybody was fawning over this guy.
Tight ends are so weird though, because the year before the tight end that was getting all the oohs and ahs was Theo Johnson, because he was the fastest player on the field 2 of 3 days of practice. A tight end. Just kind of, yep, I knew it. Mark Bavaro, New York Giants, 176 yards. Woo! It's the first Sports Illustrated cover I really remember as a kid. Was Mark Bavaro on the cover, so that's probably why I remembered it. Who knows? All right, before we get on to this next segment here, we go through the players that we don't want you to roster. I want to throw out a couple comments from the chat here. Tron Force, I was down by over 60 points with an 11% chance to win. With CMC's 40 points and the Niners kicker had a 37% chance to win. Down by 7.72 points. I have Nico going tonight, and my opponent had Evans. That's a stroke of luck. You hate to see the Evans injury, which I do want to point out the Optimus Fantasy News.bsky.social account did point out is a concussion protocol plus a shoulder injury. So it's a double whammy for Mike Evans right now. He was carted off to the locker room. RS8187 here. Thoughts on the Patriots backfield? Is Stevenson startable week 8? Yes.
Yeah.
Henderson. Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, this is my younger brother, Ryan. How you doing, buddy? This is his question, and yeah, so Ramondre Stevenson, if you have to roster a Patriots running back, he's the guy to have. He's getting the vast majority of the snaps. I don't think the Patriots believe that Travion Henderson is ready to do more. He's not found any efficiency on the ground. He's not really that good with catching passes. Even with kick returns, I don't think they're having him do it consistently anymore because he's really not that good. I don't think it's over for Travion Henderson, but I think he's going to be dismissed in dynasty formats as well because he's going to be seen as a draft bust. I just think that they're just going to need to give him more time because Stevenson's not going to be a thing forever. But we only care about this year on this show. So Stevenson is 77% rostered in sleeper redraft leagues, so he's probably not available on the waiver wire. But I mean, if he happens to be available in what's left, go get him. Like, Stevenson absolutely is fine to ride the bench with. Don't count on great games from him every single week, but when he plays terrible run defenses like the Titans, yeah, you absolutely can make a case to flex him, if not stick him in an RB2 slot. So, absolutely, Ryan, you can start Stevenson week 8 in the leagues that we compete in.
And friends, hop into the chat to check out that waiver wire article. Lou has dropped the link like the angel he is. So make sure you check out that article with the rest of our waiver wire players from the staff. It's good stuff, we promise. We got this one here from Tron Force. Pickings are slim. AR QB at QB on the waiver wire. With Jaden Daniels likely out this week, which quarterback would you stream, Evan? Flacco versus the Jets, Rodgers versus the Packers, or Mariota versus Kansas City?
I think the answer is going to be pretty obvious here, Trone Force. It's going to be Joe Flacco. You got to go after the defense that can't get anything done despite the talent that they do have. I don't even know how much longer Aaron Glenn is going to be lasting as a New York Jets coach, because when you're 0-7, that looks bad. They could go. I think they're easily going to go 0-8 against this Cincinnati Bengal team. So, yeah, don't even look at Rodgers or Mariota against these tougher defenses. Not that I believe in the Packers defense, but even then, I think the Packers are going to be having it out for Aaron Rodgers. They're going to try and cream him when they face him. So, don't even look at Marcus Mariota either. He's just not as good as Jaden Daniels, despite the fact that what doesn't help Mariota is that he doesn't have his top wide receivers either. So that's going to hurt him. Anyway, Joe Flacco's the move.
Yep, Joe Flacco is the move. Then a follow-up here. Would you drop Bam Knight or Cooper Kupp for one of those QBs? I'm dropping Bam Knight.
Easily Bam Knight.
Yeah, there's still upside to Cooper Kupp. It's not a ton, but as this team gets deeper into the season and they're winning more games and they become more competitive and it looks like they're contending, I think we might see more Cooper Kupp. Just because he's a seasoned veteran who's been there before. So I like him for the playoff run. Yeah,
Cooper Kupp, you can at least make a case for low end flex value. If he falls in the end zone, you're thrilled, but otherwise 2 for 3 for 40 is not going to net you much flex value. But 6 points in PPR is better than 0. So keep Cooper Kupp, drop Bam Knight. Bam Knight sucks.
Yep, completely agree. Speaking of players that suck, we're going to roll through this must-avoid list very quickly because we don't want to talk about these guys that much. Quinn Ewers over at Miami, he got some work in relief of Tua Tagovailoa. The team has said it will be Tua moving forward, making Ewers unrosterable. But to be clear, if they do decide to start him, still unrosterable. Don't touch Quinn Ewers. Marcus Mariota over in Washington, you really don't want to mess with this. Like Evan was just saying, he's a backup quarterback. You don't need him. If he's your best option on the waiver wire, fine. But try and stay away from it. We've given you some better options. Same with Tyrod Taylor with the New York Jets. Look, just no. Emmanuel Wilson over in Green Bay. Solid handcuff if you're into that kind of thing. But this is Josh Jacobs' backfield. Luke McCaffrey in Washington. He's going to play a role, but it's not a fantasy relevant one. He'll have boom weeks, but there's no way to predict it. And we don't know if he'll have any more of those the rest of this year. And Mike Mayer in Vegas, I know we all want to start him with Brock Bowers out. He's not startable. We're not going to see this volume. And Las Vegas's offense is not the same without Brock Bowers. And because of that, you really can't roll out Mike Mayer. It's not a thing you want to do. I love this Quinn Ewers. Yeah, pretty much. Look,
remember on the Start Sit show yesterday when I had pointed out that they made that change in the QB depth chart, and sure enough, they stuck him in that blowout game.
What do you know? It's too bad that Steve Sarkisian ruined Quinn Ewers and is ruining Arch Manning right now. It's just, I know. What can you do? I'll tell you what you can do. You can head over to OptimusFantasy.com. Check out all of our sweet content, articles coming out for waiver wire, start, sit, and vibes on Friday. And then head over to tools.optimusfantasy.com. Get 25% off your first 4 months of our awesome tools. Updated the league management software today. We've got a new power rankings tool within the league manager. It's going to tell you how good your team is versus the rest of your league. And it's offering custom trade recommendations from our rest of season projections presented to you by the one and only Lou Brunson, folks. Make sure you check that out. Again, code OptimusFall. And if you are watching this show on the replay on YouTube, or if you're listening to the audio version, please check out our Discord channel. The link is in the show description. We are there 24/7 to talk all of the football you can possibly stand. And our boy Lou Brunson is over there keeping it all clean and amazing. And it's true. These are the best projection system in the whole fantasy football verse. And I will say that. I'm not even kidding. These are pretty locked on. Lou has done an absolutely phenomenal job with them. So make sure you check those out. With that, folks, we're going to get out of here. I have dinner to eat, and you have football to watch and waiver wire claims to set. Good luck in week 7, week 8, mind you. Well, in the rest of week 7, if you're watching us here as the Monday night games roll on. It's been great, guys. For Evan Sather, I'm Nate Palvo. It's been a pleasure. We'll see you next week.